My name is Clarence Coo. I live in New York City. I work at Columbia University as a program administrator for the writing program at the School of the Arts. What I really love about playwriting is that there's this great mix between being by yourself and then collaborating with other people. And I think that kind of fits with my personality very well because I consider myself half introverted and half extroverted. And I like the time where you can be by yourself and work on your play. But I also love working with other artists, working with directors and actors and designers to bring a play to life. I think what's really important for me about playwriting is that it's an art that actually brings live people, both artists and audiences, together in one room. And I think with the explosion of the internet and things like iPads and Netflix, to actually bring people together is more important than it's ever been. Beautiful Province is about a high school French teacher who gets fired from his job and then makes the decision to take a road trip to Quebec in Canada with one of his students. I wrote the play because I've always been very interested in language. I grew up in a household that spoke 4 different languages, 2 dialects of Filipino and 1 dialect of Chinese and English. And because my family were immigrants and they really wanted me to assimilate, they really only taught me English. And it was only in school when I became really interested in other languages. And I realized that when you learn a different language, you begin to think in a different way. And that really fascinated me. And I was interested in exploring that in the language of the theater. I received a phone call from John Donatich from the Yale University Press. And it was kind of funny because I got the call at work. And because I work for the writing program at Columbia, and he introduced himself as a gentleman from the Yale University Press with good news, my initial thought was that he was going to offer like a discount or something on books that our school could buy. But then when he started talking about the drama prize, I realized, oh my gosh, is he telling me that I'm the winner? And then it kind of slowly dawned, and I kind of like rushed out of my office and like started dancing in the streets. That's how happy I was. Knowing that John Guare selected my play has been really mind-boggling because he is actually one of my heroes growing up when I first started writing plays. His play, House of Blue Leaves, was the first play that I ever saw that mixed comedy and tragedy. And ever since, I've been very interested in mixing genre in the way that he has. Winning the DC Horn Prize is an incredible honor. Writing can often be a very lonely business when you're by yourself in a room, and you're really never sure what will happen to this thing that you're working on, if people will notice or care. And so winning this prize has been so encouraging for me to know that that this thing that I do, playwriting, is actually something that's very important. I'm going to be reading a scene from my play, Beautiful Province. Scene 3. Mr. Green is going through passport control at the airport in Paris. He is excited to be here. A passport officer beckons him. They speak in the clear, stilted style of a foreign language learning tape. Officer. Good day, sir. Do you speak French? Mr. Green. Yes, I speak French. Officer. Good. I speak French too. Mr. Green. Good. Good day, sir. Officer. Good day. Mr. Green. How are you? Officer. I am fine. How are you? Mr. Green. I am fine. Officer. Good. Mr. Green. Good. Officer. Welcome to Charles de Gaulle Airport. Welcome to Paris. Welcome to France. Mr. Green. Thank you. You have a lovely country. Officer. Thank you. What is your name? Mr. Green. My name is Everett Green. Officer. What a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Green. Mr. Green. Thank you. The same to you. Officer. This is the passport control. Mr. Green. What a lovely passport control. Officer. Thank you. The same to you. May I see your passport? Mr. Green. Of course. I always carry my passport. Officer. What a lovely idea. Mr. Green. Thank you. This is the first time I have traveled outside my country. Officer. But you always carry your passport? Mr. Green. Yes, it is a lovely idea. Officer. What is your country? Mr. Green. My country is the United States of America. Officer. What a lovely country. Mr. Green. Thank you. The same to you. Now I give you my passport. Officer. Thank you. What a lovely passport. Mr. Green. Thank you. The same to you. Officer. What is your age? Mr. Green. I am 54 years old. Officer. What is your occupation? Mr. Green clears his throat. My current occupation or former occupation? Officer. Current occupation. Mr. Green. Currently, I am unemployed. Officer. Former occupation? Mr. Green flashes a smile. I was a teacher of French. Officer. That is why you speak French. Mr. Green. I have listened to many language tapes. Officer. Because you are a teacher of French, you teach French. Mr. Green. Because you are a passport officer, you look at my passport. Officer. Welcome to France. Mr. Green. What a lovely country. Officer. Welcome to Paris. What is the purpose of your visit? Mr. Green scans the room. I do not know. Officer. Is the purpose of your visit for business or for pleasure? Mr. Green. I do not know. Officer. May I inspect your bag? Mr. Green. Of course. Officer. What a lovely bag. Mr. Green. Thank you. Officer. There is a gun inside your bag. Why is there a gun inside your bag? Mr. Green. I do not know. Officer. Is the gun for business or for pleasure? It is not for pleasure. I do not feel pleasure. The officer begins to sound like a therapist. Mr. Green sits on a chair. Officer. Why aren't you feeling pleasure? Mr. Green. I don't know. Officer. Are you taking your medication? Mr. Green. No. Officer. How come you're not taking your medication? Because I don't feel pleasure. Officer. It's important you take your medication. Mr. Green. But I don't feel pleasure. Officer. 300 milligrams of the Seroquel, 20 milligrams of the Lexapro, 30 milligrams of the Cymbalta, and 1 milligram of the Klonopin as needed. Mr. Green. I want to feel pleasure. Officer. So why is there a gun inside your bag? Mr. Green. Because I see a gun inside my bag. Officer. And then what happens? Mr. Green. I see myself lifting the gun. Officer. And then what happens? Mr. Green. I see myself looking around the room. Officer. And then what happens? Mr. Green. I see myself loading the gun. I see myself taking a breath. I see myself closing my eyes. And then I pull the trigger. We hear the sound of a door opening. Then the sound of a gunshot. End of scene.